Every Who down Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm light windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously tapping, I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early, they'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, the noise, the noise, noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's, young and the old, would sit down and feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. Feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together, with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. And the more the Grinch thought of the Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 43 years I put up with this now. I must stop Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. Now all I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer were scarce, there were none to be found. But did that stop the Grinch? No! The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max and took some red thread and tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some empty sacks on a ramshackle sled, and he hitched up old Max. And then the Grinch said, "Gap!" and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay news in their home, lay news in their town. And their windows were dark, snow filled the air, and the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. Then he came up to the first little house on the square. This will be stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed up the roof, empty bags in his fists. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings were hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. And then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room. He took every present, pop guns, bicycles, and roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And then he stuffed them in bags, and the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk into the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and started to shove. He heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around and saw a small Who, Cindy Lou who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Why, Santa Claus? Why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought of a lie and thought of it quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied. "There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear, so I can fix it there and then bring it back here." And this fib worked, and his fib fooled the child, and he patted her head. He got her a drink and sent her to bed. And then Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup. He went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze. When he packed up his sled packed with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he took his load up to the tip top to dump it. "Boo-hoo to the Who's," he was grinchily humming. "They're finding out that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up and I'll know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will cry boo-hoo." "That noise," grinned the Grinch, "I simply must hear." So he paused and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising from the snow. It started in low and started to grow. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville, the Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, were singing without presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just in time. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, and bags. And he was puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then will in Whoville, they say, that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.
I know